some people might be wondering, why is it such an ambiguous journey that some of these consumers are going through, like the example we saw earlier from Google? It's important to keep in mind there's a heck of a lot of make-model combinations out there today, over 360. It's a tough time to be a consumer. You've got product parity increasing, brand parity increasing. You've got a lot of options out there for the consumer, improved online content. You've got a ton of content online. Google tells us that the majority, 72% of the research activity done online is specific brand comparison. So of course we still have consumers with champagne taste and beer budget. I'm in the market for a $50,000 car. I really need a car. Turns out that $35,000, $40,000 is my more realistic budget. So we're still going to see that. We've seen that from time to time, but couple that with the brand parity and the product parity we see out there. In recapping, over 50% of consumers are not lead loyal to make. Over 70% not lead loyal to model. 40% are not lead loyal to new, and 17% are not lead loyal to used. So in other words, 40% of the consumers that submit a new car request will ultimately burn gas in a used car. So it's important to keep that in mind and give these consumers used car options. 17% of the consumers that submit a request for a used vehicle ultimately are still going new today, probably thanks to interest rates. So this is a lot of information to take into consideration. What does this all mean? More importantly, what can I as a dealer do in order to capitalize on this buying behavior? Remember the brand parity out there. Sell your brand. If you're a Toyota dealership, a lot of these consumers are looking at Hondas, they're looking at other imports. Sell your brand. What makes your brand special? What puts your brand ahead of these other brands? Get them locked into your brand. Give them alternative vehicles. Again, if a consumer is looking at a Nissan Maxima, give them that Ultima option. Give them that option on the used car, knowing that a lot of these consumers are ultimately going to burn gas on a used car. There's no reason that consumer shouldn't buy from you, especially if you have over 100 used cars in inventory. Show every single one of your new car consumers your used car options, knowing that a lot of them are ultimately going to defect, and they shouldn't be embarrassed to begin to talk to you about a used vehicle, even though they came in on a new. It's important not to take trim too literally. There's so much confusion if a consumer should buy a new or a used or a different make or a different model. When it comes down to the trim level, consumers have a tendency to be ambiguous as ever because there's so many different options out there. So don't get caught up in the specific trim. If the consumer hasn't filled out a trim, give them a fully loaded option, give them a bare bones option, and let them know of that $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 difference. New to used, used to new. Let's not forget, a lot of these consumers are ultimately buying a used car, but if you take a look at the timing, a lot of these consumers aren't making that decision until day 30, day 45. It could be because the consumer doesn't realize they have as much cash down as they thought they had. Maybe the consumer didn't realize the car payment is what it is in the beginning of their journey, or maybe they just realized that their used car isn't worth as much as they thought it was. So as leads age, this is a great reminder to bring in the used car options a lot more frequently. If they haven't purchased in 30, 45 days, they may very well be going used. Let's make sure when they do go used that they buy from you. So let's get back to the basics. One of the first things I learned when I sold cars was the first question you have to ask is, who's the car for? Just because John Jones submits the request, we can't take that too literally. It could very well be for his daughter that just turned 16 years old. Take brand into consideration. Remember the brand affection out there. Don't take brand, model, new or used too literally. Talk to the consumer. Open up the avenue for Q&A on the phone or on email after that request comes in. Get to know the consumer a little bit. Stay in front of them with used cars if it's a new car they're requesting. Even if they submit a used car, show them some new car options where you have some competitive interest rates.